This week is Men's Health Week, and today we thought we would get LeapWell counsellor Joe Hegedus to host a webinar in line with this year's theme is See Your GP. Now, 60% of men wait more than a week to see a doctor when experiencing symptoms. That's not to say all men, but from my experience in my world, this is true. So I don't know about you, Joe, but yeah, today we're going to speak about how to recognize changes that may go unnoticed in ourselves, how to understand the factors that influence our health and behaviour. And Joe is going to provide some practical ways to check in on your own well-being and how to find the right supports for yourself. So with that, over to you, Joe.
All right, thank you. Welcome, everybody. We're here for about half an hour, 25 minutes or so, and then if somebody has questions or things like that, hopefully we'll have a few minutes at the end. So what we'll cover today, how am I really doing? So as Sally mentioned, especially men, probably more so than women based on statistics, don't reach out as often as they need to, and not as proactively perhaps. But that also means some women, but we're talking about men today. So it is more of a problem for men. And how am I really doing? We'll talk about that. Finding out ways you can do that. Why knowing is not always enough. Why is it that, we know certain things, but we sometimes don't act on them, like reaching out, for example, and how you can support your own self. So ways of supporting, there's a SEEDS model of wellness I'll share with you, and how you can support each other as well. So how is it that you might know that you're okay? I'll just pause for a second and give you just a few seconds to think about what signals you might see that indicate you are okay or indicate that you're not so well. What has happened in the past? Do you sort of wait for a blow up, or are there subtle signs that you can notice? So one way to ask yourself, am I functioning? Sometimes we're not okay in functioning, but this is a very, very quick check. Am I functioning reasonably normally in work, in school, in general daily tasks? Am I getting things done for the most part? Am I isolating myself to any degree? More than I usually do. So not everybody's an extroverted person always out, but how is it compared to how I usually would be? And also, if I'm checking out for short times, that's okay. If I sometimes feel a little bit down, there's a function for depression. And if it's a short-term depression, sometimes it helps sort of reset me, protect me. I don't want to see anyone for a few hours or maybe a day or two. That's probably manageable once in a while. But if it happens for a longer period of time, maybe a week or 2 weeks, and I'm not really able to engage very much, that starts to become a problem in how things flow for you in your life. So probably by rule of thumb, this is not a clinical measure, but clinically, there are some measures of depression that indicate sort of a 2-week period, or some people use a several-month period. But I would say a week to 2 weeks. If you're not engaging beyond sort of 2 or 3 days even, and things are very different, it's probably a good time to start reaching out. And is knowing enough? So sometimes knowing is enough, but usually it's not. It needs to be coupled with feeling that something is the way to go. So our subconscious is the part that drives the bus almost 100% of the time. It could be argued 100% of the time. Our conscious brain can inform that part, but until we get the real felt sense in our emotional center and our survival center that that's the way to go, we probably won't be going that way. So if knowing was enough, most therapists like myself, counselors, psychologists would be out of work for the most part. Because most of you, let's face it, you know that certain things are healthy, and including me. I went to bed at a reasonable time last night, but I probably could have gone to bed a little earlier. Why didn't I go to bed earlier? Well, I knew I could, but I didn't, did I? So nobody's perfect in this area. But when we become aware and we have that dialogue between our more conscious self and our more subconscious sort of self that drives the bus, we end up getting more results. So feeling what's important is really important, is really the key, not just knowing what's important. So knowing can be a good start, but it's not the whole picture. And try not to wait for a crash. To wake our subconscious up, sometimes, we wait for a major event or we don't wait for it, but that's sometimes what triggers us to make some change or to do something differently. This is an opportunity for you to do things differently. So you're trading in a half an hour of your time here today. I hope you get something out of it because your time is valuable to you, and it can perhaps even preempt a crash or preempt the need to wait for something major in your life to make these changes. So how to know if you're okay? There's an easy wellness measure that some people can use. It's pretty quick and it's very available online for everybody. Just 5 questions. It's called the Who 5. So it's widely used by many people around the world, not by obviously all GPs. They use some other wellness measures. Sometimes if you go to the GP's office before they screen you for, say, sending you to a psychologist or whatever. But you can do this yourself and get a really good gauge. If you have any doubt, reach out. So whether you do the scale and you still have doubt, or whether you're not even doing the scale, if you have any doubt, like, oh, maybe I could use a bit of help, or maybe something is not quite regular for me, some way that I don't like, time to reach out. Okay. So this is the measure. Keep in mind it's an indicator only, obviously not a diagnostic tool, but it is a very good gauge if you have any confusion as to, how have I been doing? You might even do this every month or so. You could just do a quick survey and see where you're at. Some people have done that and have found success with monitoring and catching themselves before things get really bad. So 5 easy questions. You add up the total. And on the website, it says you can multiply them by 4 to get a score out of 100, but I just go by 25. It's pretty easy. And those are the categories. So 18 to 25, you're generally well. And then any of the other categories, I would say consider reaching out, but especially in the lower 2 categories. So making sure that you definitely reach out if you're in the bottom quarter or the bottom half of that possibility, right? We will fluctuate. Most people will hit the bottom of this at some point in their lives, probably multiple points in their lives. So nobody's immune to feeling unwell. Even people who are extremely positive and extremely resilient will at some point score very low on this scale. So don't feel that any of us are immune to that zone. Okay. So as I said, reach out if you have any doubt at all. Some people do nothing. As Sally said, a lot of men don't reach out, more so than women. Sometimes that works. Sometimes time is on your side. Sometimes it'll pass. You don't need to do anything at all, and that's true. But sometimes it won't. Sometimes it will only pass after a long period of time, or maybe not at all. And for some people, it seems like it's passed. But whatever events have been distressing us sometimes build up in the subconscious, and we kind of forget about it. And I encounter a lot of people in the counseling space where some people don't know why they're feeling unwell because things have built up and they haven't made time to process. They haven't made time to give themselves the platform for understanding, just feel it, what they're feeling, even just allowing themselves to more fully feel bad when it is time to feel bad. Sometimes they roll over it. They say, oh, it'll pass. And maybe consciously it does, but subconsciously the memory and the emotional imprint remains. And it always remains with us. But if we don't process it, if we don't review it with somebody, sometimes it builds up for years and decades. And sometimes people take it with them their entire lives. So either way, reaching out can be helpful. Even if you don't need to reach out, what's the harm in actually reaching out? Most of the time, nothing. There are very, very few scenarios where that would cause any distress for someone that they have reached out. There might be some risks like stigma or sometimes, it takes a little bit of time to do something, but overall, that will pass quicker than the alternative if you do need to reach out, but you don't. So very little risk to it. Research also shows that if I'm feeling any distress, anybody's feeling any distress, and they share with somebody who's present with them and actually receives what they're saying, problem's not solved. It's all the same. It reduces the distress. Sorry, I forgot to turn my ringer off here. Apologies, guys. It reduces distress, and it also engages more of your brain when you share with somebody what's going on. Even though you haven't found a solution to the problem, you're actually engaging more of your brain mechanisms, and then you'll probably get further with it rather than ruminating on your own. And I'm not saying you should never think on your own. That's absolutely, very helpful sometimes. It's just that you can engage more of your brain if you also review it with somebody. So who can you talk to? If you can think for a moment, is there anybody in your personal life or otherwise who you can trust if and when you need? Is there a friend or anyone else in your personal life? If there's nobody in your personal life, what are some other ways we can get assistance? Just leave that with you for a few seconds. Consider other ways that you can get help and ways that you might actually consider as well. So these are just some ideas. Obviously, there are personal supports and professional supports. Sometimes a friend or a family member is exactly what you need, and you don't need to reach beyond that. And sometimes they're not available, or maybe our friends and family don't have the maturity level to sit with us, and maybe some people tell me their friends or family would just ridicule them. When you come from a background like that, if any of you do, it's important to know that your likelihood to reach out is definitely reduced. The likelihood that you will reach out if you've had a family of origin that doesn't encourage that, doesn't model that, that might even ridicule it. Obviously, you have been taught not to reach out. That's the environment message to you. So it's more of a challenge for people from that kind of background. And there are quite a few people who have experienced that to some degree. And that might require a bit more of a push. So if you don't have any family or friends, please consider a professional, a counselor, a psychologist, see your GP for referral to a psychologist. And the EAP is a great space to review some things that are distressing to you. Leapwell offers the program to your companies and definitely an easy pathway, no cost to you. It benefits you, and it also benefits the company as well, because if you're looking after yourself, you become more productive overall. On average, it works for everybody. So it's not going to work for every individual perfectly, but it usually does work to reduce distress and as a tool. So it doesn't have to be your EAP, but that's certainly one of the free tools that's available to you guys. So things to do proactively when you're well and especially unwell. There's a SEEDS model of wellness. This is one way to look at things to make sure that this is actually an acronym that if you remember it, and you don't have to review these slides to remember them, if you can hammer this home in terms of your just a way of life sort of thing, if you can drive this into your personal culture and maybe share it with some friends or anybody else if you can. It's a wonderful acronym that reminds us of 5 areas of wellness. You probably all know about these areas of wellness, but it's a really good way to review, even within 30 seconds or a couple of minutes. Where are my opportunities today? What can I do a little bit differently to look after myself? So the S is for social connection. And I'll go through each of these a little more detail. E is for exercise. The other E is for education. That doesn't mean formal education. We'll go into that further, not just formal. D for diet or nutrition, and S for sleep. So I encourage you, if nothing else, this is one of the things you can take from today. Really get to know these areas well, know this acronym really well, and you can think about this every day. Do I have an opportunity in any one of these areas to do just a little bit more? So a small improvement in any of these areas on a regular basis really can make a difference in how resilient you are. When things do go wrong, you might actually have more fuel in the tank to handle them, and probably fewer things will go wrong if you're looking after yourself in these particular areas. So social connection is the first one. It's probably the biggest single factor of psychological wellness for people. Even if you're introverted, even if you're not so much of a people person, imagine if you lived on an island. And some people tell me, yeah, they'd be fine on an island. But once you're on an island for a few months or even a few weeks, I think it would really hit home that some reasonable people around you would make a bit of a difference. So social connection, it doesn't have to mean that you have 500 friends, but one or two people you can interact with somewhat regularly, that you feel you can be yourself around to some degree, and you feel you can trust that connection. It's really, really important for life and for wellness. And if you don't have that, talking to somebody as to how you can develop a bit of that over time. It takes a long time to develop those connections occasionally. Well, it almost always takes a long time. Sometimes you hit it off right away. But it certainly can be a very good investment of your efforts. Depression impacts on connection. So when I'm depressed, I don't feel like connecting with anyone. When I don't really feel energetic, I don't feel like things are going right. That's probably the time I really want to hibernate for a while. But once we go through maybe a few hours or a day or two of that, if we're not getting out, it's the last thing we want, but it can be the first thing we need. So just keeping that in mind, and if you see that in others as well, sometimes to politely drag out a depressed person is the nicest thing you can do to them, for them. So social connection, very important part. Exercise. I'm sure most of you know the benefits of exercise. And at the end of this sheet, it will indicate, please, if you cannot exercise, if you have physical ailments or anything like that, I understand. This is obviously not achievable for you, and I respect that. So making sure you can get as much movement as you can, even if you can't walk or anything like that, get the upper body moving. If you literally have full paralysis, you can focus on the other areas. But I will go through this anyways for most of us who can do exercise. It is as good or better than medications or talking therapy for mild to moderate depression and anxiety. So I'm sort of doing myself out of a job here, but a lot of people either go to the gym for exercise, maybe they pay a bit of a membership there, maybe that's $1,000 a year or so, but $1,000 a year can be a lot for people, but it's really not super expensive if you're using it. Some people just go for a run. It costs them a pair of $100 or $200 shoes all year, and maybe a t-shirt or whatever. So it's a very, very effective, financially effective way to look after yourself. And it boosts your productivity as well. So for those of us who feel we don't have time to exercise, it's almost always worth trying to find and make time for it so that we can get more productive. Because if we do it regularly, we get more productive. So if you did nothing else, if you're feeling unwell and you haven't been exercising, if you did nothing else but start to regularly exercise, you give yourself a very good chance that you will come out of feeling unwell. It's not always the only solution. Obviously, it's time to reflect on things if you've gone through major events, major losses, major traumas, those types of things. But even then, it can be a supplementary major factor in your recovery. So higher heart rate is needed to get the benefits of this, the mental health benefits of this. So I'm not an exercise professional, but I've read a little bit about it. Please check with, a physio or an exercise, what do you call them? PT or other personal professional who does this regularly. But I'm going to say, just as a guideline, about 120 beats per minute plus heart rate for most people, and breathing slightly heavily. Okay. Everyone has slightly different threshold, obviously, and sometimes significantly, but around that, making sure that for about 20 to 30 minutes each time in total that we get up to that zone. That's where we get the maximum health benefits, mental health benefits. Doesn't mean walking is no good. It is good, but it just gives you different benefits. So 3 to 5 times weekly is the sweet spot, and 20 to 30 minutes each time. And I'm going to say that quite confidently based on a study that was released 3 years ago, which is on the following slide. So you don't have to do 6 to 7 times. And what I really loved reading this study a few years ago was it's the good news is doing 6 to 7 times and 2 hours a day sort of thing. Some people can benefit from that, but the average person doesn't actually gain more benefit. In fact, for mental health wise, it can actually reduce benefits if you do too much. And I'm not sure why that is. I have my own guesses on that reading the study, but for the most part, the good news is you don't have to do a crazy amount of exercise, okay? And this is 20 to 30 minutes in the higher heart rate zone. So we'll just show you the study. That's the source of it if you want to look it up. It's a major review in 2023. You can write down that study name if you like. But there's the conclusion and relevance. It's basically very, very effective for anyone, it says, basically, if you want to conclude that very briefly. So education, it's not just formal learning, it's challenging your brain regularly enough with things like difficult puzzles or games, friendly debates, anything that pushes you mentally a little bit. Even just an engaging conversation can be challenging sometimes, and it doesn't mean that it's negatively challenging. It can be, oh, how about that concept, and we're just sort of thinking outside the box or whatever. Even just being funny. Some people are very good at being funny. That's actually challenging your brain when you're actually, sitting and chatting and joking around about stuff and being clever. This all fits into the box, reflecting on TEDx talks or YouTube talks that are healthier, hopefully not doom scrolling the whole way through, but reflecting on helpful ones. History, facts, how things work, creating challenging things, doing art, woodwork, fixing things around the house, outside, planning things that you like to plan and engage with, but getting your ideas going, getting that brain going. And the more we do that, the more lively we feel in general. So diet or nutrition, I like to call it rather. So there's a gut-brain connection. People sometimes treat depression with strictly diet, and it can be done. It's been shown. It's not always the only solution, but if that's all you did was eat healthier for, say, a month, if you're feeling terrible and you eat healthier for the next month, chances are you're going to start to feel better. It is really a solid connection with wellness. Anxiety is reduced, depression's reduced typically. If you eat less processed foods, lots of veggies, fruits, healthy proteins, limited carbs. Again, I'm not a nutrition professional, but we all have some idea of these aspects of healthy eating. So please do check with a health professional who's relevant to nutrition if you'd like to get more information on that. But I think most of you would know what it is that we need to be well, and to find out what your body needs, because it can be different than somebody else, obviously. So making incrementally better choices nutritionally, like if I order a fish and chips, maybe the fish is battered and deep fried or whatever. Okay, maybe that's not the best thing for me, but if I have a salad instead of chips, I don't like salad as much as I like chips. The only reason I eat salad is because it's good for me. I don't eat it because I love it. So, unless it has a bunch of unhealthy dressing on it, which makes it taste much better. But so just taking one for the team sort of thing within yourself, making some healthier choices there can help. Sleep is the next area. I'll go through this very quickly because we have limited time. But sleep hygiene, a really good site there, sleephealthfoundation.org.au, and you can look up sleep hygiene on that. If you want to write that down or type that down, I'll leave this slide up. You can use sleep tracking apps to track your sleep quality. It might measure sounds that you're rolling around or whatever, or it might actually measure the bed movement. You can use that on your phone, or you can use watches or these types of things if you wanted to do that. One of the other things that I often tell clients who struggle with sleep, they sometimes tell me that they struggle and they lay in bed once they're past that point of no return, like I'm not getting up, but I'm going to try to force myself to sleep. But that usually doesn't work. If you're going to get past that point of no return, get out of bed, do something else in a dimly lit, quiet area. So try to associate bed with sleep as much as possible, and try not to do, devices and TVs and whatever in the room if you can. And if you have one in there, consider getting rid of it if you can. I know it's hard, but one of those suggestions. Supporting others, making sure that we don't only look after ourselves, but maybe I've already reached sort of the 70% or 80% wellness mark, and I'm ready to offer something to other people that day. It's important to be proactive, especially as men, because as Sally said at the beginning, men reach out less than women. That's a fact. Not that no men reach out, obviously, but it is a lower number. Keep in mind when you're approaching someone or offering anything, you don't need to fix their problem. You can't fix their problem. Even I, as a counselor, as a trained counselor, it is not my specific job to sit here and come and fix the problem for the person. The person will fix the problem in the end. I might have some suggestions or some other things that we can reflect on, but ultimately the person ends up fixing the problem. And you don't even need to make suggestions. But first, check if you have the energy and time before you check in with them. Have at least 20 minutes free, I recommend, maybe more if you can. You're not running off to somewhere. No interruptions before you approach them. And be brave. Don't assume that they're going to reject your help. It's oftentimes we don't approach them thinking, oh, they're just going to say, that's okay. And it's okay if they say that, but you've offered. Okay. So don't let your own fear of rejection stop you if you can. Okay. But one thing you can offer, the best thing you can offer, is always presence. So share if you've reached out for help. It reduces stigma, and ask whom they can reach out to. If they don't have anyone in their personal life, let them know the counselors, psychologists are out there, GPs, LeapWell, the EAP, Lifeline. Following up one day or 1 week later, asking how are things, and remind them that you're there and about other options. So any major concerns, please seek support. Make sure that you get someone else to check in with the person if you have major concerns about any risky situations or things like that, okay? Just before we finish up here, I'll say whether you're an official leader or not, you can improve the culture in terms of looking after yourself. That's setting an example in society because people will see someone who's doing that more often. It's good modeling, it improves your own resilience and improves your ability to contribute in whatever way you can. But also it improves your ability to check in with others if you can too. It might make a bigger difference than you think. And remember, you can always offer presence. So that's it. That always goes very quickly when it's only half an hour we've got, but it's good that I like the half an hour ones. They allow you to get back to your normal lives very quickly.
That's right. Thanks so much, Joe. And just on that, we do, there you go. Someone just said, thanks, Joe. We do offer workshops in a lot of the areas that Joe has touched on in this webinar. You know, we have nutritionists on our clinical team, people that specialize in relationships who can help with that social connection. Yeah, we have financial coaches. There are a lot of different people on our team that can help you with a lot of different aspects of your life. I really liked the seed framework for people to have something, you know, a structure to follow in how they might grow and improve themselves and look after their well-being. And just for everybody, Joe is one of our counsellors on our clinical team. So if anybody would like to reach out, you can book with Joe through our app, or you can reach out to our intake team on 1300 908 031 if you do want to reach out for support. As Joe touched on at the start, it does help to reach out early to get on top of whatever might be going on for you. So with that, thanks so much for your time, Joe. Have a good day, everybody, and we will see you, I think, next week for our next webinar.
Thanks, Sally.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Joe.
everyone.
See ya.